Let's see. All right, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am Darrell Kemp, Superintendent of the San Lorenzo Unified School District. And on behalf of our district and our Board of Education, I want to say how much it's a privilege and an honor to welcome Governor Newsom and the first partner to San Lorenzo High School in our district this morning to elevate this important topic of financial literacy and dismantling wealth gaps that we have within our community and across the nation and of course, the world. Part of the reason I'm grateful is because they chose San Lorenzo and San Lorenzo High School in particular to focus on this issue. In San Lorenzo, we pride ourselves of envisioning a group of students that are well-informed, civically engaged advocates for equity and social justice. And we know that economics is a huge part of that mission or the vision that we have for our students. We also know that the competition for space in a high school schedule is challenging. And we need to recognize that we need to create these environments and the conditions for learning where our students can have access to this complicated, all these courses that we think of in separation and be able to blend that information in such a way that brings greater coherence and sense for them. And it's a very difficult task. That's why I also want to say thank you to Judy Smith, who you'll hear from later, a teacher here at San Lorenzo High School, for all the work that she's done in this space of getting the students to see the interconnectivity between the subject matters. Finally, I just want to say thank you again to Brock Ahrens as the principal of San Lorenzo High School. This opportunity, we know that high school principals and students don't get much, and I want to say thank you again for all of the pivots and guidance that you did to, leading us to today. With that, I'm going to once again turn it over to Tim Allen, and you're going to hear a little bit more about why we are here today. Thank you again. Thank you to Governor, and thanks for choosing San Lorenzo High School to highlight this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Camp. I'm Tim Ranzetta. I'm co-founder of a nonprofit called Next Gen Personal Finance. I want to tell you a story about one of my students, David. David was one of the first students I taught in a course that I taught just down the road in East Palo Alto, at a high school serving first-gen students who were so hungry for this knowledge. David was one of those students from day one. He was lit up when we started talking about investing. The idea that he could invest in the stock market, that building wealth was not just for the wealthy. It was an opportunity available for him. That with just a few dollars, you didn't need a fortune to start investing. That evening, David emailed me. His dad wanted to learn what he learned. So the three of us, David, his dad, and myself, we sat down together and his dad opened his first investment account. David went on to college, he led the investment club, and he now works on Wall Street. One class, one semester, that's what this does. So that experience of teaching, that inspired me to start a nonprofit, Next Gen Personal Finance, with a very simple mission. When you teach the course, you can't help but believe every student in America deserves the opportunity to learn about money. The same way we would never think about sending a young person out on the highway without driver's education, we should no longer send them into the world without personal finance education. And because of AB 2927, signed by Governor Newsom, we won't. Every single student in California will now be able to benefit from a personal finance course. The economics of this are extraordinary. There's a study done by Titan Partners. It says every student who takes a course in personal finance is worth $127,000. Multiply that by the number of graduates every year from California high schools, that's a $57 billion in economic value that's going to get created over their lifetime. There's some recent news I'm really excited about. The state board And the IQC did something that I think we should all celebrate. What they did was they developed a step-by-step guide, because implementation is what really matters. This document is going to help every district roll out this course. They did it ahead of schedule, and I think it's a document I want to share nationally, because I think it's a best practice on how this needs to get implemented. And I want to recognize someone here who played a key role in that. Jeff Allen. Where are you, Jeff? There's Jeff. So Jeff has done two things. One, he's at Fresno Unified. He took the district from 0 students taking a course in personal finance to close to 1,000, right, Jeff? Not exactly. Close to 1,000, and then he led the group that put together a 217-page document to answer every question the district knows to implement this well. We want to make sure Next Gen Personal Finance that all the districts have the support they need. So Katie Ginsberg, who's an NGPF partnership manager, she's here to support every district to make sure that this gets done well. So I want to thank Governor Newsom and First Partner, Jennifer Siebel Newsom, because they're committed to the financial futures of every Californian. Their leadership is not only sending a signal here in the state, but I think nationwide. This course changes students. Those lessons go home to families, and it impacts teachers. This course, teachers are so excited to be able to teach this, and they tell us time and time again, I'm learning myself, and I'm better off financially as a result. Here's something that speaks directly, I think, to why we're here today. When we look at the 9,000 teachers using our curriculum in California, 60% of them are women. Think of the power of that. Role models on the front lines of the work that we're doing, showing students every day building wealth is within their reach. So I know one of those role models personally, and I'm really excited to introduce Judy Smith, who's the economics and social studies teacher here at San Lorenzo High School.
Thank you, Tim. Yes, my name's Judy Smith, and I'm a teacher here at San Lorenzo High School, but I started at a teacher education program in UCLA 24 years ago. And when I was there, there was a teacher there learning like me, and she said one of the only things she remembers from high school was learning about personal finances. And I said, well, we got to do something about that. And so we sat down and we crafted a semester-long personal finance project that we embed into the economics class, and I've been doing it ever since. And you can imagine how excited I was to find out that this is going to be a standalone course where we could really dig into the details. And I have to tell you, I know it's a winning initiative because my students tell me after doing the project, they say things like, everybody should be learning this, and this is really eye-opening, and I had no idea how many decisions adults had to make, you know. And they say, you know, that they know that they're going to use it when they're adults. It's super useful. And some of them even employ some of the learning real time with their families when they go home. And what I love is with this personal finance curriculum, we meet kids right where they are. This is personal for them. And it's really important work for them. And we start talking about building wealth, and they ask me, Ms. Smith, how do I build wealth when I don't have any to begin with? And you're right. How do you? What can we do about that? And so of course, they take personal responsibility for learning everything about compound interest and investing and saving and budgeting and credit cards. And so we have all those conversations. But we also talk about the wealth gap and economic inequality. And we do a mini unit on solutions to economic inequality and what can be done. There's so many that could be coupled together that kids can use and have a voice about, which is really wonderful. So in my class, what we learn together is personal finance, how money can make money, and ideas that could also make their journey to wealth easier. And so we have a civics bent to it at the end, that finance is both a personal and a civic responsibility. And that idea that Paul Wellstone said that we all do better when we all do better. And so I know there was a shout out to Jeff Allen. I doubled the shout out as a teacher in the classroom because the guide that he wrote is so robust. It includes some of the stuff I talked about economic inequality, which is also wonderful. And I want to thank my school district and my colleagues here for all the support. This has been a great experience. And with that, I want to introduce first partner Jennifer Siebel Newsom. Jennifer Siebel Newsom understands that opportunity doesn't happen by accident. It's built through access, education, and intention. Through her work as first partner, she's been a force behind efforts to ensure more women and families can not only participate in our economy, but truly build wealth and stability. Today's event is a powerful example of that commitment and action. Please join me in welcoming first partner Jennifer Siebel Newsom. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy, for her incredible leadership. Good morning, everyone. Woo. A few months ago, I was visiting an elementary school and talking with students about their futures. And naturally, I asked what they wanted to be when they grew up. Some answers came quickly: a doctor, an entrepreneur, a YouTube star. One student told me that she wanted to open a restaurant that hires people in her neighborhood so families there would have more opportunity. The ambition and the creativity were all there. But what occurred to me was that not all of them were given the necessary tools to understand personal finance. And that shouldn't be a privilege. That should be a foundation. Growing up, my dad was a private wealth manager, and I still needed to go to Stanford Business School to learn a thing or two about managing money. So today, it's wonderful to be here at San Lorenzo High School, surrounded by really special students and educators and leaders who understand that economic opportunity starts early. By the time many young people learn about budgeting, credit, and investing, they've already made financial decisions that can follow them for years. I mean, just look at the levels of student debt these days. So today we are flipping the script and empowering more Californians to understand the basics of financial management and wealth creation. We all know that wealth begets wealth. It's what gives families stability. It's what allows people to buy homes, start businesses, invest in their futures, and support their families during a crisis. It's what allows future generations to prosper. Yet across our country, women still face structural barriers to building wealth. And despite being the fourth largest economy in the world, even California women continue to be excluded from wealth generation. Closing the women's wealth gap is not only a matter of equity, it is an economic and social imperative impacting job creation, innovation, and long-term prosperity for our state. So last year, we launched the California Women's Wealth Advisory Council to help close the women's wealth gap here in California. Some of our esteemed council members are here with us, and I am so grateful for their expertise and passion. And I want to give a shout out to our co-chair, Catherine Rice. Thank you, Catherine, for your incredible partnership and leadership. Catherine helped us bring together leaders from venture capital, finance, and business to ask some very practical questions. Where does capital flow today? Where does it stall? And what would it take to open more doors to wealth for women and families in California? And so today we're acting on those questions by signing this executive order that begins to shift how opportunity and capital flow. Because in reality, California women own nearly 40% of businesses, but they continue to face real obstacles to accessing the capital that they need to grow. So this order is about changing that. It brings together investors, philanthropists, and business leaders to identify critical ways to move capital for women entrepreneurs and women-led funds. It also calls on state leaders to explore partnerships and tools that support long-term wealth creation for women and families, because despite strong results, these entrepreneurs are still overlooked by investors. It also strengthens early savings and financial literacy programs like Cal Kids and Cal Savers, helping families begin building financial security from day one. And most importantly, this effort starts with young people like the students with us here today at San Lorenzo High. Starting in 2027, but already in the works, every California public high school student will be provided financial literacy education, because every kid deserves the tools to make every dollar count. And when you understand wealth, you can build it. Just as when women build wealth, their families thrive. And when families thrive, our communities and our economy soars. So thank you, Superintendent Dr. Darrell Camp, Principal Brock Ahrens, and the entire San Lorenzo community for hosting us today and for understanding the power of financial literacy. And now it is my pleasure to introduce a fearless champion for women and families across the Golden State, my husband, Governor Gavin Newsom.
Thank you. Well, thank you, all of you, for all your hard work, and thank you for getting us to this point. I just want to, step back a little bit and try to knit some things together and give you a rationale for at least, argument for the case we're trying to make here today. I mean, we live in a country well established that 10% of people own 2/3 of the wealth. We live in a country where a 30-year-old, for the first time in American history, is not doing better than his or her parents did. And it's never happened in the history of this country. And I say it often as we continue to make the case for our republic, for our democracy, that in order for this democracy to thrive, we have to democratize our economy. And there's many ways of doing that. And many of the strategies that we are highlighting today are in the rubric and framework of pre-distribution, not redistribution. This notion you've got to begin at the beginning. And for years, we have been making this case, and now we're seeing so many of these initiatives take shape. If you're going to solve for ignorance and poverty and disease, when you say you begin at the beginning, you quite literally have to begin with prenatal care. That's why our focus on prenatal care, 0 to 3, not 0 to 5, 0 to 3, the vast majority of the brain is developed those first 3 critical years, why we established a new framework and created a Surgeon General in the state of California. Focus on ACEs, focus on strategies to truly make those critical investments, to knit together a framework pre-K for all, not just kindergarten. Our interventions sometimes come too late if we're going to solve for these challenges. And we've fully implemented that brand new grade at a scale no other state in the country has. In 2011, when I was asserting a similar paradigm as then mayor of San Francisco, we also were trying to make a case around the issue not just of income inequality, but wealth disparity, and focus on a novel program and strategy, which we referred to at the time K to C, kindergarten to college. It was the first established framework to actually create savings accounts, college accounts, for all kindergartners in our public school. 54,000 plus accounts have been created in that space, up to $1,000, $1,025, I think, on average now, those accounts. We remember at the time the Obama administration came out to highlight, did a press conference with us highlighting this first-in-the-nation effort. When I committed to this job, I committed to the people of this state that we wanted to bring that to scale in California. And we did that with the legislature about 5 years ago. It's not called the Trump accounts. They're, in fact, not named. And we struggle, as a consequence, with awareness around it. But 5.5 million people now in the state of California are eligible for these career and college savings accounts, up to $1,500 in certain categories, minimum of $500 universally. We also established new baby bonds in the state of California for every child born after July 1st, 2023, up to $175 just off the bat. In addition, now to the opportunity to get up to $500 to $1,500 for these new Cal Kids accounts. These are things that are not happening anywhere else. When people talk about what we need to be doing next, this is what we need to be doing. Practical, strategies and solutions and interventions to actually solve problems. Knitting these things together now is what this executive order is all about. And it's not even knitting together what we're framing in the beginning, but also as it relates to having a lifetime mindset as it relates to savings. And that's why we're highlighting today the work we're doing with CalSavers, which again is unique in this nation. I want to applaud the former governor and the legislature for their leadership in this space, and 7+ million people that don't have access with an employer to retirement accounts, 529s, et cetera. Opportunity then to highlight that as well and to do what Jen and her team always do best, and that is to make sure we highlight those other persistent disparities as it relates to women and girls and access to capital, and highlighting those stubborn facts that we're not even near to where we need to be as it relates to addressing those issues, particularly at a time when everyone is running away from them. We're now leaning into them through this executive order. So that's the framework that we're knitting together. But one of the things that was missing, and Tim, I just want to thank you, was the kind of advocacy. We were talking about financial literacy for years and years and years. And be candid with you, it's tough because we talked about it. All these competing interests in terms of curriculum, I don't know, we still are trying to implement this or still trying to do that. And it took pressure from Tim and his team to create the conditions that forced the conversation anew. So I just want to thank you for doing what we struggled to do for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years. You made it happen. Amazing. And to Judy and all the doers, not dreamers, that showed that it can be done. You know? And to this young man at Scale in Fresno County, and thank you guys for just, stretching the mind and distilling a sense of well-being that we can actually get this done, so much so that Tim highlighted, they've got this guide done in record time at the Board of Education. You don't hear that at the Board of Education. And people seem reasonably pleased about it. And so now it's about moving. And we don't have to wait till 27, 28. We can move. You move. You're moving. This district, thank you, Mr. Superintendent, you're moving. Proving it can be done. And do it in a way now that no one else can lay claim. Because every one of these kids, over half these kids' parents don't have access to checking and savings. That's why there's a proliferation of payday lenders. All these, loan sharks that are out there taking advantage of folks. And they are. There's no other way to describe it. Usurious interest rates. I appreciate we're focusing on credit card interest rates, but I don't know why we're not focusing enough on what's happening all across this country in our diverse communities and the interest rates that are being legally allowed to be charged to low-income folks to simply cash a check. And so the ability now to have something that's tangible, every one of these kids now has something maybe their parents don't have. And that's their name to their account. And all of a sudden now they have an asset. And now they have a curriculum, and they're wait a second. You're talking about me. You're talking about my money. It's not intellectual anymore. It's pragmatic. It's real. It's there. It's tangible. It's my account. And, I can invest, and here's the strategies for investment. And so once the mind is stretched, again, it never, goes back to its original form. And that's what this is all about. It's creating a mindset, yes, around college, sure, if that's your pathway, or career. And how you can be an investor in the economy, how you can be an owner, how you can feel you have a stake. And that's all end. Because we need to put a stake in the ground where we all have a stake in terms of our future. And that describes so much of the stress and the populism that's out there. People just don't feel they're part of it. They're not seen, they're not heard, they're not included. What's the whole point? And that's the nihilism. You start, a lot of folks just giving up. Giving into the cynicism. And so this is, again, an antidote to all of that. And so forgive the long-windedness. I didn't do a soundbite here because it's not about sound bites. It's about systemic change. And this is what all of this is. We have locked this stuff in, and it's exciting, and it's happening at a scale that no other state in America can claim. And so I just want to thank everybody for this opportunity. I've been, poor Izzy and my team, they know how excited I was about this day, finally here, to be able to celebrate with all of you and to celebrate with my wife and her team their outstanding work and taking it to yet another level altogether. And with that, we might as well sign this executive order and take some questions. Why don't we get closer and we'll sign it and then we'll... all right. You do these?
Catherine, get up.
All right. She's got a restaurant. We'll talk about that later. You guys all in here, Dee Dee? All right. Let's do a quick photo, everybody. All right. We got this done. Thank you. Thank you, Jen. All right. That's all. I'm giving that to you. With that, you'll be taking questions, right? I think you guys are up first. I think we have some of your you know these guys, right? I know them. All right, let's go. Let's see how this goes.
Mr. Governor, so I'm Mark. I'm a junior here at San Lorenzo High School. And so my question is, out of all high schools in California, either the East Bay or up north in Sacramento, you could have went to any of their schools. But my question is, why did you decide San Lorenzo as your partner for this new class coming?
Because you got these rock star students, you got rock star principal, got a rock star superintendent, and then you got this, where is Judy? There you are. This rock star leader right here has been at this for a quarter of a century. Not complicated. It's about rewarding excellence. It's about highlighting success. And I just want to say this just for you and just at your age, you're nothing but a mirror of your consistent thoughts. Whatever you focus on, you find more of. And so we're here focusing on what's right with your school and this district. And the more you focus on what's right, you start to see more of it. It becomes more abundant. And so it's really important to sort of maintain that focus and celebrate success when you can.
With the growing amount of state-mandated classes, how would you suggest schools balance these now required classes with art and elective classes?
Okay, see, we just had this long ago. That's why I was laughing. Should I let you? I'm going to let you guys answer that question. We were all talking about that, and maybe the superintendent and the principal. Maybe you could talk. I mean, we had an honest conversation about that. It's a great question, and how you incorporate all that. And that's your work.
Well, what I appreciate about the governor is sometimes it takes people to push on the system in order for the system to have to evaluate itself. We've been operating on this high school model for ever since the Carnegie unit was established, I think over a century ago. And it has a certain amount of courses you need to take, and somebody determined that those courses were important. And I think it's really important for us to kind of step back as a system to say, how do we reimagine education? It used to be a lot of emphasis on, you take the English here and your social studies and math and science. The people that we need in this society that are going to be the leaders in the society are the ones that can think in a more integrated fashion, because all those subjects are going to be important when you're leading. When I became a PE major at Morehouse College, I had no idea that this would be my job. And I can tell you that it's not about thinking of these courses in isolation. It's going to be, we have to reimagine what education looks like for students in such a way that's going to make it make more sense for the students rather than thinking of courses in isolation. So that's a long way of saying nothing. But it is, I think, the solution. We really have to reimagine education in such a way that's going to make sense for the students of today. Your prime work years are going to be in the middle part of this century. And we need to make sure education evolves in order to meet the needs of today and the middle part of next century.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the question, and it's an appropriate one. I mean, we're all absorbing. We heard some rumors as early as yesterday, a few days ago, Someone said something may be coming out, an investigation as it relates to this. And, it's March 30th, I think at the end of the month, Cesar Chavez Day. And, every year the governor of California proclaims Cesar Chavez Day. It's in statute. How many days I've marched, how many times I've been with students, talking about the movement, and how many photographs I have in my house of Bobby Kennedy and Cesar Chavez. Woke up this morning, it was right there. And so it's been hard to absorb this. Jen and I are very close with Dolores, so many of us are, but very close. Have been for decades and decades, and none of us knew. And we were sharing all this. And so I think all of us are processing it. And just these kids have to process it now. I mean, I think there's, Brooks, I don't know, 3 dozen schools in the state are named after Cesar Chavez. I don't know, community in the country. I traveled to 14 states last few weeks. I think I was, in 14 Cesar Chavez streets in every part of this country. So we're just going to have to reflect on all of that and, reflect on a farm workers movement and a labor movement that was much bigger than one man and celebrate that. And that will be our focus as we process what the next steps are. But I also am mindful that it's one thing for me to process, for some of us, it's for young kids, this is hard. And so I hope we have some grace in that respect, as they wonder if there is a name change. Their identity to their school, to this icon that they thought one thing of, and how we process that shift. And so, this is the world we're living in, and we're for justice, we're for the truth, we're for transparency. We want to have the backs of our victims, but it's a sensitive moment. Yeah, as I said, I'm just processing this within hours of. I just read the article this morning. As I say, there was never an indication all these years. Particularly, spent so much time with Dolores, and now finding about 2 kids. It was, just a lot to process. So, look, I think again, it's about the movement, it's about farm workers, it's about labor, it's about social justice, economic justice, racial justice, all things that the movement has inspired. And we should all be celebrating.
Governor, in terms of prevention, I'm curious to get your take. What does it say about the systems that have been in place here in California that this kind of alleged abuse has been?
Well, it's not unique to California. This has all been highlighted in pretty, three-dimensional ways, and Epstein and all the rest. This is a broader culture. This literally goes to the heart of the work. I'm here with someone who's been at this for decades, my wife, who's been calling this out for decades, has done 7 documentaries, calling out the why, the systems. What we just signed in the executive order goes to start to address those issues. It's amazing how lazy we are, that we're not getting under the hood and dealing with the real structural reasons why. It's about power. It's about dominance, aggression. It's not about empathy, care, compassion. It's not about women and girls. It's not been the priority. Now it's all being washed away in real time. You're seeing this move by the current administration to put America in reverse on voting rights, highlighted the SAVE Act conversations, civil rights writ large, and anti-woke legislation, anti-DEI legislation. And so, all of those are just proof points of the work we have to do, but they're deeper and systemic, and they're bigger than our state. The difference is, though, in our state, we've been pushing back against a lot of those forces, but we have a lot of institutional work still to do.
Governor, you've spoken often.
Just one second. I'll get you, Jeremy.
Would you consider changing the holiday name to reflect the movement instead of the...
Yeah, look, I would. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And look, I'm open. Obviously, these are brand new conversations. So we're having conversations in a very public way right now. But those are important conversations. I think we need to have those conversations. I think that's the right thing to do. But, we have to unpack all this and dive a little bit deeper, seek first to understand before we're understood, before we jump to the next steps. And so this there's a sense of urgency on that in the context of this being, month we celebrate the life and times of a figure we've long embraced and revered. And so now we're learning more. And we have to be there for the back of the victims, and we have to make sure truth and trust is restored, and we have to make sure we're transparent and people are accountable in that context.
Governor, you
Forgive me.
spoken often of your reverence for Bobby Kennedy. You referenced it just now. Probably Senator Chavez is his biggest political ally. I know we're still all processing this, but I'm curious for you, given that really personal connection, like how you process it in the light of those connections.
Jeremy, I wasn't exaggerating. I was brushing my teeth. There they were. To the right, yeah. That's the first photo I wake up to, black and white photo. I've talked to you. In the past, I talk about my why, standing up to ideals, striking out against injustice. So much of it is captured in the vernacular of those times, and Sarge Shriver and Bobby and Cesar, and solving even the language. I wasn't being loose in my language a moment ago. I talked in the context of this press conference about solving for ignorance, poverty, and disease. That's the language of the 60s. That's what they represented. But there was a hard-headed pragmatism as well that defined that their work. And so, it's difficult. And as I say, it was, it is even more difficult just, learning more about someone I know so well, like Dolores. And I think, again, Jen and I, it's hard, I don't want to overstate, because I think everyone shares this with Dolores. She's 96 years young. She's ubiquitous. She's everywhere. And we all feel like we know her. We all feel like she knows us. And so, all of this is sort of captured a moment where, requires a little more reflection, a little more understanding. We need a little bit of space, but we need to move. If we need to move, we'll do so together. We'll talk to the caucuses. There are already conversations at the staff level, and you can imagine Sacramento. Those are robust right now. You'll have some reporting shortly, and I'll learn more as well about those conversations.
I would like to ask.
Not yet.
Your first partner, if you please can say some words in Spanish.
There you go.
Regarding this matter.
Okay.
I'm with Telemundo, so I would like to.
Sí.
If you can answer that for us, that would be great.
Tengo muchos sentimientos por Dolores y las mujeres que eran niñas en esa época de violencia hacia ellos, y las mujeres están en nuestros corazones, y eso es, yo tengo mucho respeto por ellos a compartir sus cuentas, porque eso es muy difícil. Pero porque ellos están hablando, eso va a ayudar más mujeres y niñas y niños a hablar de esas cosas muy feas en nuestra sociedad, en nuestra cultura. Y eso es muy importante, porque tenemos un problema muy grande en el mundo con poder y hombres con poder que hacen cosas muy mal a mujeres. Y no tiene que mirar más que las noticias de lo que ha pasado por años con Epstein, con Cosby, con Weinstein, con, más hombres. La mayoría de los hombres son buenas personas, pero hay algunos que han hecho tantas cosas feas, y tenemos que decir no más a esos hombres. Gracias.
When it comes to just straight up gender bias against women investors and entrepreneurs as they're trying to get their businesses started?
Well, we highlight a lot of the statistics in the executive order, which only reinforce this. We also highlight some of the efforts in the past as it relates to our efforts to diversify boards, to get more pay equity information made available and public, more transparent, the fits and starts in this space. But clearly, we have more work to do, and that's highlighted by this work group that Jen put together. And Jen, perhaps you can speak a little bit more about that.
Gavin, do you want to say something with me?
Please go ahead.
Come up while I ground myself. I'm still shaking a little bit about Dolores and all these young women. So I want you to say something first, and I'll jump in. It's a lot. It's like we're living in really tough times, and, this war on women isn't new. It goes way, way back centuries. Enough is enough. So it's got to end. It's got to end in my lifetime. You want to say something?
Absolutely.
Okay.
After that setup, it's hard. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. I think this is a huge opportunity. It's an opportunity for our country to invest in women, and not only as an investment opportunity because they're underinvested. As the governor said, they run almost half of the businesses in the state. Women influence 80 to 90% of all purchasing decisions, yet they get 1 to 2% of capital. And as an investor, it's a great opportunity to invest in an underinvested class. But it's also the right thing to do to invest in the fabric of our state. And I think it's a great role model for the rest of the country, and they should take a playbook from what the governor and First Partner are doing to take that across the country, because it's a huge opportunity, and I agree, the time is now.
Yeah, time is now.
Absolutely.
Governor Newsom, you talked about the power dynamics earlier. Can you talk about this executive order? Do you see this as a potential path forward to eliminating this kind of abuse?
Well, it's not one. It's many different strategies. And look, and I feel like Jen's got a new film that's about to premiere. Can I say it?
I don't know.
Okay. And I'm literally just watched 150 edits of this movie, which literally goes to your question. Let me just leave it at that. I won't do justice. She's literally got a new film, which is an update of misrepresentation about the mis- and underrepresentation of women and girls, and in many of those power dynamics. She followed up with a film called The Mask You Live In about masculinity 15 years ago as well before people were focused on the crisis of men and boys and what's happening in that space. And that's a huge part of it as well. It's why we have an agenda for our young men as well. It's why I did an executive order a year ago. It's why Brooke is running that effort. Richard Reeves will be out next week. We have a big event press conference highlighting the work we're doing to support our men and boys, which is a huge part of the answer to this as well. And that, has many different shapes in terms of the work we're doing, from recruiting kindergarten teachers to mentors. 10,000 is a numeric goal of young men to be mentors and volunteers, to other efforts that we can more systemically attach a focus on that crisis. But this is a component part. It's not the solution. It's one of many.
Final question so students can get back to class.
That was good. You see, now you can't argue with that. Getting back to class. We got to do one in a school every time. Yeah.
They're fine being out of class.
Oh no! Don't say that. Don't say that.
One on topic.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
On topic is I know that this has been a matter of financial literacy that's been talked about by Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah.
Have you heard about bipartisan support for this?
Yeah.
And the off topic, forgive me, I know it's sensitive matters here. We've heard some critiques of the parole board amid the elderly parole program in California, some people calling you to fire the board, others, including some Democrats calling for just some reform. What's your reaction to all of that?
Well, they've disagreed with me on a number of recommendations. As you know, that I couldn't reverse legally, but sent back what we refer to as en banc. I do think in the context of those issues being highlighted, there's some reforms that we should advance as it relates to transparency through an en banc process and making sure that we know who voted in what direction. I think there needs to be deeper scrutiny as it relates to violent sexual predators as well. And so we're working with the legislature, and I think there's real opportunities to advance some of those reforms in this legislative session. And so the issue of financial literacy transcends all of us. I mean, Tim could talk about this more. This was never a partisan endeavor, quite the contrary. And look, it's about pragmatism. It's about something, my kids all the time say, Dad, I don't know why are we doing this? This has nothing to do with my life, et cetera, et cetera. They don't fully understand this notion of problem solving, creativity, all that yet. Fine. I bore them trying to give that argument. But financial literacy, trust me, when my son gets this, it's going to be like, Dad, finally something. I'm going to school. I'm excited. I can learn about investments and diversification and gross profits versus net profits, and look at savings versus checking, and I just think that gets people. It's a little better than some of the algorithms when someone's trying to exploit young man saying join Hustlers University, $50 and you can get a Bugatti. That's what they're up against online. So this is really important offline that we have a counterweight to sort of this gambling, prediction culture, short-termism, get-rich-quick mindset. And that is a huge issue in this country because you used to look on the internet to look things up. Now it's finding you. And a lot of these folks, these young kids, they're up against a lot. And so this is an antidote to that as well. Thank you all very, very much for being here. Thank you.